Welcome to Political Perspectives. I'm Hugo Gurdon, Editor-in-Chief of The Washington Examiner. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if that's where you're watching this. I'm joined today, as I usually am, by Byron York, Chief Political Correspondent for The Washington Examiner. And Byron, since we last spoke, 4 House Democrats have gone down to El Salvador to meet with the probable gangster, Abrego Garcia. Surely there are sort of diminishing returns for them, sticking their necks out for a character of this sort, right?
I think we've seen that demonstrated right now because, first of all, the leading Democrat, the first off the mark Democrat to do that was Senator Chris Van Hollen, and he went down to El Salvador, and it took him a couple of days. He was kind of standing around, and Twitter was making fun of him, and it looked like maybe he was on a failed mission. And then, bingo, he gets in to see Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and it's a lot of news. It becomes big news, and Chris Van Hollen is the hero, etc. So we knew that even at that time, there were a lot of other Democrats who were planning or hoping to go down and do the same thing. So now 4 members of the House, let's see, they're Robert Garcia, Maxwell Frost, Yasmin Ansari, and Maxine Dexter. 4 of them have went down to El Salvador in hopes of seeing Kilmar, who has been moved. He's no longer in the mega prison. You already always
Right.
heard to seek out referred to as the mega prison. No longer there, apparently in a lower security, nicer place where he has a bed and some furniture. And he didn't see him. So they go
Uh,
down there and they try to hold news conferences and attract attention. And now they've come back having not seen Kilmar Abrego Garcia. So my guess is that some of the ones who were planning trips down there have decided that maybe they'll stay home instead.
yeah, I assume that Representative Garcia is no relation of the fellow in the slammer. But anyway,
Yes, we'll stipulate that right now.
uh, you wrote recently about the central mystery, or the question that really isn't answered, and actually I think is key here, and that is Abrego Garcia, you were saying, is probably not in jail, in prison in El Salvador because the Trump administration insists upon it, but because President Bukele wants him there. Explain that.
Well, yeah, that is the fundamental question of this. This is why is Garcia in jail in El Salvador? The fact is, we, the United States, deport people all over the world and to El Salvador all the time. And when you deport someone to El Salvador, they arrive at the airport, they leave, and they go live their lives. The important part for the United States is that they're no longer in the United States. They've been removed from the United States. That's the big deal. We don't deport people to imprison them in some other country's prisons.
Right.
This column I did was based on a conversation with Art Arthur, who works for the Center for Immigration Studies, spent many years as an immigration judge. He handled cases exactly like Garcia's, and also worked on Capitol Hill and in the Justice Department. So he knows a lot about immigration. He said, "Look, the most probable reason this all occurred is not that Donald Trump picked out Kilmar Abrego Garcia and said, 'Get him out of here, go put him in jail in El Salvador.' The most probable explanation is that President Bukele of El Salvador asked for a Garcia to be brought, to be sent to El Salvador, whereupon he would put him in the jail that he keeps all accused gangsters. Apparently, this mega prison is a gang only facility, and it has mostly MS-13 and this other gang called Barrio 18, which actually played a small role in the Kilmar Garcia story as well. So it's most likely he's in prison because the government of El Salvador wants him in prison.
Right, right. You know, perhaps this goes some way towards explaining the response of the administration when they say, well, look, if the El Salvadorian government ask us to take him back, we'll send the plane. But they're probably not expecting it to come back. But anyway, let's change gears and talk a little bit about what has been going on in the last at least couple of days with further volatility in the financial markets. President Trump suggested he was, considering firing the Federal Reserve Chairman. And
Yep.
there's also been considerable more concern about tariffs. And then just in the last day, President Trump has come out and with a much softer tone, and he talks about he says he has no intention of firing Chairman Powell, and he also talks about the probability of a deal on tariffs with China. So, is this a change of policy, or is it actually probably not a good idea to look so much for policy and to see this as a sort of day-to-day, as it were, finger in the wind, responding to events? How do you see what we've seen over the last 24 or 48 hours?
Well, I think there were both responses by the administration, responses to the market, because the market had been calming down a little bit at the end of last week, and then you had the Easter holiday, and then you had Trump come out on Monday and talk about firing the head of the Federal Reserve. By the way, the head of the Federal Reserve's term expires this time next year anyway, in May of 2026 anyway. And there's no good reason to fire him. There's just
Right.
no good reason to fire him. And Trump wants him to reduce interest rates to get the economy going faster, to get the stock market going up, which Trump has been pushing down
Right.
with all of his tariff moves. So
Yeah.
anyway, Trump comes out, I think it was about 5:30 in the afternoon after the markets close on Tuesday, and says, I have no intention of firing Jerome Powell. Never did. I said, well, okay.
Yeah.
And, so basically what you had was on the day that Trump says he wants to fire Powell, the market Dow goes down 1,000. And on the day that Trump says that he's not going to fire Powell, the market goes up 1,000. Okay. Then there's the China matter, and Scott Bessent, the Secretary of Treasury, has kind of emerged as the most important voice, other than the president's, in this whole China thing, and he started making noises to the effect that the current level of warfare, trade warfare between China and the United States was not sustainable, and that you would see the tariffs come down.
Right.
Um, when? I don't know, but he clearly raised that hope. And then Trump himself said the same thing. They're going down. So the markets are responding positively to that. This is not mysterious stuff.
No, no. In
Um,
fact, you can see the markets are truly trying to tell
yeah,
President Trump something, and that is,
yeah,
we'd like some stability, please. We don't like the tariffs, and
right.
we don't. Yeah. So let's switch finally to the dispute which has now gone to court with Harvard University suing the Trump administration over what could be as much as $9 billion of federal funds being withheld from the university. There's been obviously it seems to me rather extraordinary for a university to claim that it needs the federal dollars, or if it gets the federal dollars, it will show its academic independence, that its academic, sorry, independence, that its
Yeah.
academic independence relies on the continued flow of this money, which it seems to me a kind of an odd contradiction. But President Trump, in doing this, is to some extent doing what President Obama did when he imposed he threatened schools with the withdrawal of federal funds if they didn't adopt the gender policies of which he approved. Now, the fact that he's doing the same sort of thing that Obama did may be a cause for complaint, and it may well be wrong in principle. It's also notable, however, that cries about academic independence were not voiced from the left when President Obama was doing that. But the final thought that I have on this is there's an old maxim, which is that he who pays the piper calls the tune. And it is absurd to tout your independence, demand your independence, and then also demand the money. The person handing out the dollars has a degree of discretion over giving that money. Isn't that the case?
I think it is the case, and I come down on this where the Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz came down on this Harvard lawsuit, and he said Harvard is not going to win this lawsuit, at least at the Supreme Court, because The university has a right to decide what it teaches, but it does not have a right to receive federal money. And that's just as simple as that. And so if the federal government denies funding for all sorts of reasons,
Right.
and then it gives out funding for all sorts of reasons. So it's really up to the federal government here. And Harvard does not have some sort of claim it can protect in court to federal money.
Yeah, seems like a long shot to me, but we'll have to wait for that to get perhaps to the Supreme Court. That's where we'll leave it, Byron. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Thank you all viewers who are watching us. Again, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if that's where you're watching this, and we'll see you again next time.